Hello and welcome back to Crafted by Corie. If you're new, I'm Corie. Welcome to my channel. If you are returning, thank you as always for being here. You are the best. I have some brand new Valentine's DIYs, all minis, along with a DIY tiered tray. So let's go ahead and get right on into the crafting. DIY number one. All right, I have a bunch of items from the Dollar Tree. These are 3 identical candle holders that I've had in my stash for a while. I did end up going back and grabbing a different one. I had, fortunately, more than these 3 because I found one was wobbling. So it's going to be really important that I have the candlestick holders or candle holders that are nice and solid, and that are going to come together and not wobble. And then I have those burner covers. It's a pack of 2, also from the Dollar Tree. So we are making this tiered tray for $4. Very excited about that. So I'm going to just kind of test the way that I want to put it together here, and then I'll be ready to get it well, I thought I was going to paint it at first, and then I realized I really should assemble it before I paint it. I was also thinking I was going to be using my Adirondack white chalk paint, but I thought, you know what, these bases are black, and all of the tiered trays I've done in the past have been light or white in color. Why not make a black tray? So as I started to get that paint going, I was like, you know what? I need to put this together first. I pulled out my E6000, and I'm going to be using this around part of the first candle holder. I'm leaving gaps around the edge because I'm going to come in with my hot glue in the places where I'm not applying the E6000 so that I can keep working with the project. So it's going to give me that short-term bond because the hot glue will not hold it by itself. And then the E6000 will give me the long-term bond, but the hot glue will serve to hold it together until the E6000 is completely dry or cured or whatever it is that E6000 does. So I got those first 2 together. This is going to be the piece between the 2 trays. I'm going to go ahead and apply the smaller top tray here. Again, I am just applying E6000 to the corners, and then I will use the hot glue in those gaps, again, for the same reason, so that I can keep this project moving right along. Making sure that that is as centered as possible, and then I will be ready to apply it to the bottom tray. I'm going to want to make sure I center that as well, so getting an idea of where it needs to sit on there. And the same thing, E6000 on the corners, and then I'll come in with hot glue on the edges. And I'll flip that over and center it to the best of my ability. I'm just kind of double checking that it's centered based on my hand widths. And now I'll be placing the other one on the base. It's going to be really important to me that I get it as lined up as I possibly can with the centerpiece, just so that everything looks even when you look at it from the side. I want everything to look nice and straight. Same thing with the glue. I'm lining it up, eyeing it, making sure that it is in sync with the other. And so our tray is put together, and we are going to be ready to paint this. I took the black chalk paint and I just poured a little puddle in the top tray. Believe it or not, that was enough paint for this entire tray. So I found that I just needed to keep transferring it to the bottom tray, and it was enough for coating both sides of both burner covers, as well as the pieces that are holding the tray together. So the candlesticks, this entire thing was coated with that. So just wanted to make sure that I was getting underneath as well. And I did coat the candlestick, I want to keep calling them candlesticks, but the candle holders, I painted those as well, just so that they would be uniform. Obviously they were already black, but I wanted them to have the same sheen and be the same as the rest of the tray. DIY number 2. All right, I have a whole bunch of stencils that I pulled out of my stash, and I have these heart forms. They basically are shelf sitters, I guess you could call it. And I was trying to decide how I wanted to decorate them. So I was originally thinking for the smaller one, I wanted a pattern on it. I thought that one might work, but it was just a tad bit too small. So I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to do it. I decided I was going to start with the larger one, figuring out which way I want it to sit on my tray. These actually are from Couture, but you could really use whatever you have. And these are obviously not Couture stencils. I'm just using the Couture heart cutouts because I've had them in my stash and I wanted to be able to use them. I don't have the transfers, I guess they call them, that go along with the hearts, so I'm having to use my own stencils, which is perfectly fine. And I wanted to use the This Is Us. This is by Plaid, and I've had this for a while. You could see that I've used some of them in the past, and they're really cool because they're sticky, so they adhere nicely to whatever you're working on, and I found that they really don't bleed. At least that's been my experience so far with them. So definitely a fan. But I was just trying to get that lined up, wanted to make sure that when it's standing up on my tray that it looks like it's all straight. Now I certainly could have done it from top to bottom with the heart, but I thought it might be a little strange to see it with the word sideways, although when I think about it, I guess the candy hearts are done that way, so I really could have done it either way, but this is the way that I opted to do it. This other piece, I knew it wasn't going to fit, but I was being a little stubborn and trying to see if I could make it work. So I end up opting to do a different pattern at the top part of that heart. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and use my chalk paste. This is also from Couture. I just decided I was going to try using this, even though it's not one of the silk screen transfers that is typically used. I just wanted to give it a shot and see how it would work with this. And it actually worked really well. I just had to be careful not to scrape it up off of the surface. So I kind of applied it somewhat generously so that it would remain on my piece that I was decorating. So I went ahead and just very carefully peeled this up. It does have that adhesive on it, so I'm trying not to stretch out the stencil too badly. I don't want to tear it, so just being very gentle and nice and crisp and clean. And then this, so that was purple shimmer, and this is candy apple red. And I'm going to use the candy apple red on this other Dollar Tree stencil as well. I'm just trying to figure out how I want that lined up. And then I decided I didn't want to use the little squeegee tool. I want to use this little sponge. So I have this makeup sponge from my stash that I'm going to use for this. And I'm just going to go ahead and dab off some of it so I avoid having bleeds with this. But the nice thing about the paste is that it's a little bit thicker than regular paint. At least that's what I have found. So I found it less likely to bleed, at least with the way that I was doing it here. So I just gradually made my way down until I had all of the stencil covered, and that was that. And then for the green part, this is also a chalk paste. It's called Pesto. It's just a really pretty green color. I went ahead and got that all filled in, and then I was ready to remove that last stencil, and this piece is going to be complete. And then I'm going to be setting myself to the task of figuring out how to decorate the complementing heart. But I love these stencils. I think they're so pretty. Very cool. All right. So I finally decided I was going to use that same stencil with the hearts and have it complement the other heart. So I'm going to just do this with the candy apple red again, with my little makeup sponge, and apply this to the entire surface of this smaller heart. I didn't have quite enough paint out there. I've been using these little packets. I save everything, you guys. I don't like to waste. So this, when you get the Couture monthly things that they do, they'll send you the transfer of the month and then the little paint samples that are sufficient to do the project with. Well, I tend to keep the packets because there's more paint in there and I can use them for other things. So I just end up wrapping them up and taping them just with Scotch tape to seal the little package, and it works just fine for me. And I also know that I can add a little bit of water to it if it gets a little bit too dry. But I think these turned out really sweet. Let me know what you think. DIY number 3. All right, I have an actual Couture silk screen piece there, and this is a little crate from the Dollar Tree, or little, would you call this a crate? It's not really a crate. It's a mini little tray, I suppose, but I'm going to be using the back side of it as my sign. Now, in the past, I have always painted my pieces first. This time I decided I wanted to try and see how this would look on the wood tone, and then I figured I would paint the sides and perhaps give it a frame with paint. So I just made sure that it was all nice and centered. Coming in with my candy apple red again, and I'm just going to squeegee it on, making sure that I'm working relatively quickly. I tend to work a little bit slowly sometimes, and then I've found with the chalk paste, it ends up drying very quickly and sticking inside of the transfer, and so then when you lift it off, it pulls up the paint with it. So that was why I pulled that up real quick. And I will do the same thing with each of these little pieces. So as I go, just going to do a section, lift it up so that I make sure that I don't end up having it dry on me before I'm ready to take the whole thing off, just to make sure that my design turns out the way that I want it. And right here I made a little bit of a faux pas because I used some of that chalk paint or chalk paste that had been sitting there for a second. That's how quickly it dries, you guys, because it wasn't there very long, right? But I had applied that to that F in the word free, and then I had to go back in for some more of the chalk paste. And that part that I first applied with that drier chalk paste, it ended up sticking a little bit inside the transfer. So that letter is not perfect. I don't know if you'll be able to see it on screen. I can see it in person and it bothers me. But yeah, so just a word to the wise, you want to work quickly with these transfers and the chalk paste because it does dry really quick. All right, so I've got my words on here, and I'm going to go ahead and use my Adirondack chalk paint to create a border. And then I will also be painting the sides. Now I could have taped this off to create a really nice, super straight line. I opted not to because I felt like I was going to end up having to tape over my lettering, and I didn't want to put tape over that for fear that it might lift the chalk paste. If you're not familiar with Couture, their chalk paste is washable, so I don't know how it would work given that I've put it on this particular piece and it's right on wood, but generally when you use their pieces like those hearts I did earlier, you can wash them off and reuse them and decorate them in different ways later on. So that's kind of cool. But I'm just being really careful and making my lines as straight as I can. They are probably not perfect, but you have to look at it pretty close, in my humble opinion, to tell that they're not super straight. So I think I did an okay job with that. But I just went ahead and made sure that all of my lines were as straight as I could get them, and then I painted each of the 4 edges just to finish this off and make it nice and neat to be going on the tray. Let me know what you think. DIY number 4. All right, these are some little buckets from the Dollar Tree. I believe they did come in a pack of 3, and I'm going to be using 2 of them. I also have a bunch of little random things out of the drawer in my stash that is all things Valentines that I have to craft with. These were just little random pieces, some of which I'm not really sure where I got them. The grapevine heart that's there was in a pack of 3 or 5 from the Dollar Tree. I've had that for quite some time. It's the last one in my stash. And then these other things, I'm not sure where these came from. I don't know. I've had them for a while. Not sure where I got them, or if perhaps one of my subscribers sent them to me. But I am going to be pulling them apart a little bit and piecing things together to create something that's going to have a little bit of height for the tray. So with the pieces that we've created so far, they're all kind of lower sitting pieces, and I wanted something that was going to help raise the eye, so to speak. So I went and grabbed my little paint marker because I had that white, some of the foam was visible. The styrofoam, these are styrofoam hearts covered in a red glitter, and for whatever reason, I know for the larger heart I'd pulled the little ribbon. I guess it was kind of like an ornament. I'd pulled that out and it left some of the foam visible. I'm not sure why the other smaller heart had that. I don't recall what it was a part of or why it might have had some of the bottom glitter removed, but took care of that with the chalk paint. And now I'm going to transfer some of the beads from one of the other skewers over to the main skewer. I'm probably making this harder than it needs to be. I was trying to just have it slide from one to the other. Yeah. But I think I have about 9 of these beads on here. They were already pre-painted. And now I'm going to add a little bow. So I'm going to take the ribbon from the piece that I've completely pulled apart and tie my bow on this. I'm going to actually tie my bow upside down because for whatever reason I am backwards, and when I tie my bows upside down they turn out right side up. So I've just learned from experience to do it that way. And I'll futz around with it for a minute, and once I have it the way I want it, I'll go ahead and trim off the edges and just cutting them at an angle so that they don't fray. And now I'll be ready to try and figure out how I want to set it up in these little buckets. So I did know that I wanted to use floral foam, so I went and grabbed that from my stash. I also grabbed some moss that you might have seen there. I've got my old kitchen knife that I keep in my stash specifically for this purpose, and I'm going to cut it down into pieces that will fit inside the bucket. And I want it to be a snug fit so that it doesn't wobble around. Now you can certainly use your hot glue and glue it in. I actually do end up doing that for one of them, but for this first one, it was nice and snug in there. Now that hot glue that I put on to hold the moss, I made sure that I was leaving the center free of hot glue because I want to be able to put my skewer down inside of there. And if I have hot glue in the middle of that, the skewer is not going to go through the hot glue. Once that's dry, it gets really hard, as I'm sure you probably know, and it's not going to work. All right, so that one's done, and now I am ready to do number 2. So I've got my bucket set up, and I'm just trying to figure out how I want to make this one work. My thought is I'm going to just add the little heart to the skewer and have it stand upright. And I did succeed in doing that. It took me a minute to get the skewer wedged into the right part of the grapevine heart so that it was standing up straight and not kind of leaning or at an angle. So once I got that in, I'm just trying to figure out how I want to put this together. I already know that I want to use a special ribbon that I'd gotten from Amazon a couple of years ago, I think. It looks like little leaves. I think it's so pretty. And I'm going to be gluing it to the base and then wrapping it up and around. I had been trying to decide whether I wanted to put the moss down first or do this first, and I decided I wanted to do this first so that the moss will actually help hide the base of that ribbon. So I'm going to just wrap it around and around the skewer, and then I'm going to measure off what I think is the right amount for wrapping it around the grapevine heart as well. So I'll go ahead and start wrapping it. I'm going to turn it on its side here in a second so that you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. But I'm just going to wrap it around just not super close together, but whatever makes my eye happy, right? So I do a lot just by eye. And then once I got it back down to the base, I'm trying to tuck it into the grapevine, and I succeeded in one spot, but then the other spot kept flipping back up. It didn't want to grab it. So I'll just use a little tiny bit of hot glue right there. And I mean, like a smear of hot glue, not even a little glob. It was just a tiny bit so that I could tack down the end of the ribbon. And so now that that's done, I'm ready to add my moss. So I'll go ahead and put that in and just make sure that that is nice and covered so that the floral foam is camouflaged. And then I grabbed out this ribbon from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to go ahead and make another bow at the base of my heart. So do the bow upside down again. If I can get it wrapped around there, and then I will make sure that I trim off the ends as well. Now this one, it didn't want to stay where it was supposed to be. It kept kind of almost flopping over on itself, so I did add a little bit of hot glue to the base of the heart and flipped the little knot up onto the glue so that the bow will stay where it's supposed to be. Once I had that done, I went ahead and trimmed it off. And this one is pretty much done as well. Oh yes, this one was not a snug. I mentioned before that I did end up gluing it. There you go. So I glued that down, put the moss back in it, and it was good to go. And I didn't photo these together. I did them separate. So here they are. And here we are with the final reveal. Okay, everybody, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the projects. Please leave me a comment. Let me know which one was your favorite. Remember to give me a big thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And until the next time, be well, be kind, and make it a great day. Thanks so much for watching and take good care. Bye.